Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. My name is Rigas Andino and I'm the moderator and also an editor for this video discussion. This this discussion originally held on November 29, 2025 at 9 p.m. But there was a technical problem. There was no audio at all in the whole recording. So I tried to make this new video to show what happened during this session. On this discussion, our topic is about what would you do if you become an English teacher. So this video is made to complete our academic speaking assignment for the Faculty of Teacher Training and Education at Universitas Terbuka Indonesia in session 7.
Assalamualaikum
Let's check it out.
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to today's discussion. My name is Riga Sandino, and I will be your moderator for this session. Today, we will discuss an interesting and important topic, which is, what would you do if you became an English teacher? This topic invites us to imagine ourselves as future English teachers and think about what kind of teacher we want to be, how we want to teach, and how we can help students learn better. Each of our participants will share their ideas, opinions, and personal plans if they had the opportunity to become an English teacher. The speakers for today's discussion are Andrea Pooja, Shania Putriana, Kasia Joanna, Cora Nisa, and Fatimatul. Each participant will present their thoughts and reflections on this topic. While listening to the speakers, I encourage you to pay attention to their ideas and think about your own answer to this question. At the end of the session, we will have time for a short reflection or discussion if needed. Without any further delay, let us begin our discussion today. I would like to invite our first speaker, Andrea Pooja, to share her thoughts. Andrea, the time is yours. Andrea Pooja said if I became an English teacher, the first thing I would focus on is creating a safe, warm, and comfortable classroom where students are not afraid to speak or make mistakes. Many students feel shy and nervous when they use English because they are afraid of being laughed at or judged. So I want my class to be a place where mistakes are seen as a normal and important part of learning. I would start every lesson with simple English greetings and short conversations like asking about their feelings, activities, or plans. Because I believe that daily practice is the best way to build confidence. I would also use many fun and meaningful learning activities such as songs, short movies, storytelling, role play, and interactive games so that students can learn English in an enjoyable way and not feel bored. In addition, I would always try to use simple and clear explanations so that students can easily understand the lesson. I would give them time to practice, both individually and in groups. Because I believe that language is learned best through communication, not only through listening to the teacher. I would also pay attention to the different abilities and backgrounds of my students. Because every difficulties, I would give extra support, encouragement, and guidance without making them feel embarrassed or left behind. I would continuously motivate all students by giving positive feedback, celebrating their progress, and reminding them that improvement takes time and effort. I would teach them that English is not only for tests and exams, but also a very useful tool for communicating with people from other countries, for studying, working, traveling, and connecting with the world. My greatest dream as an English teacher would be to see my students become more confident, brave, and open to new opportunities through the English language. I want them to believe in themselves and be proud of every small achievement they make in learning English. Shania said if I became an English teacher, I would try my best to make English lessons simple, clear, and enjoyable for all of my students. Especially for those who think that English is too difficult. I understand that English has different grammar rules, pronunciation, and vocabulary. And that can make students feel confused and frustrated, so I would explain every lesson step by step and use easy examples from daily life. I would connect the lesson with things that are familiar to them, such as their hobbies, family, school, and dreams for the future, so that they can feel that English is part of their real world, not just something written in a book. I would also use technology such as videos, music, online games, digital quizzes, and educational applications to help students learn in a modern and interesting way. In my class, students would not only sit and listen, but they would also be active participants. I would ask them to practice in pairs and in small groups before speaking in front of the whole class so that they can slowly build confidence. I would encourage them to try, even if their sentences are not perfect, because I believe that courage is more important than perfection in the beginning. I would always give positive and kind feedback and help them correct their mistakes in a gentle way. For writing activities, I would guide them from simple sentences to longer paragraphs and short texts, giving clear models and helping them organize their ideas. I would also make time to listen to my students, to understand their problems and support them not only as a teacher, but also as someone who cares about their development. My goal is to help students realize that learning English is possible for everyone and that they are more capable than they think. Koran Nisa said if I became an English teacher, I would try to change the way students think about English, especially those who believe that English is scary, boring, or impossible to understand. I would explain to them that English is just a language like any other, and it can be learned slowly with practice, patience, and confidence. I would begin every lesson with fun and simple warm-up activities such as short conversations, word games, riddles, or quick quizzes to make students feel relaxed and ready to learn. I would focus on developing the 4 main skills of English: listening, speaking, reading, and writing, and I would use various media such as songs, videos, podcasts, and short stories to make the learning process more interesting. I would encourage my students to speak English every day, even if it is only 1 or 2 sentences, because regular practice is the key to improvement. In writing activities, I would give topics that are close to their own lives, such as their family, school, hobbies, and dreams for the future. so that writing feels easier and more meaningful. I would not focus only on test results, but more on progress, effort, and improvement, and I would always celebrate even the smallest successes. I would also teach moral values such as respect, responsibility, honesty, and hard work, because I believe that a teacher's role is not only to teach knowledge, but also to build character. My goal is to help students grow into confident, positive, and independent learners who are not afraid of using English. Putriana said if I became an English teacher, I would not only focus on teaching vocabulary and grammar, but also on helping my students use English in real-life situations in a creative and meaningful way. I would start by getting to know my students' interests, such as music, sports, movies, games, or social media, and I would use these topics as learning materials to make the lessons more engaging and personal. I would design activities like short dramas, presentations, storytelling, and role play so that students can practice speaking naturally and improve their confidence. In reading activities, I would encourage students to read stories, comics, articles, and simple novels in English, and I would train them to understand the main ideas without translating every single word, so that they can start thinking in English. I would also introduce them to the cultures of English-speaking countries, including their traditions, celebrations, food, and daily life. Because I believe that language and culture are closely connected, I would teach my students that learning a language is not only about passing tests, but also about understanding people and the world better. I would motivate them to practice English every day in small ways, such as watching English videos, listening to English songs, or writing a simple diary. I would also teach them the importance of discipline, consistency, and hard work in learning a new language. As a teacher, I would be patient, supportive, and open-minded. And I would try to create a classroom atmosphere where students feel inspired and excited to learn. My greatest aim would be to help my students become confident English users who are ready to face future challenges and opportunities. Fatamadal said if I became an English teacher, I would try to make English a natural and enjoyable part of my students' daily lives. I would encourage them to use simple English expressions in the classroom, such as greeting each other, asking for permission, sharing opinions, and giving compliments, so that they become more familiar with the language in a real context. I would use a student-centered approach, which means that students would not only listen to me, but they would also actively participate in discussions, activities, and projects. I would organize creative and fun programs such as an English day, an English drama performance, a speech contest, or a wall magazine in English to increase their motivation and teamwork. I would introduce new vocabulary regularly and encourage students to make their own vocabulary notebooks where they can write new words, meanings, and example sentences. For students who feel shy, afraid, or discouraged, I would give special attention, motivation, and support, reminding them that learning a language takes time and everyone has their own pace. I would always try to be patient, kind, and understanding, and I would listen to my students when they have problems or difficulties. I would teach them that English is a valuable skill that can open many doors in the future. Whether for education, career, or communication with people from different countries. My greatest happiness as an English teacher would be to see my students grow, improve, and finally feel proud of themselves when they can speak English with confidence. Cassia Joanna also said if she became an English teacher, she would see myself not only as someone who teaches a subject, but also as someone who inspires, guides, and motivates students to believe in themselves. I would make my classroom a safe space where students feel comfortable expressing their thoughts, ideas, and feelings in English without fear of judgment. I would always remind them that mistakes are a natural part of the learning process and that even native speakers sometimes make mistakes. I would organize interactive activities such as group discussions, debates, storytelling sessions, interviews, and question and answer games to help them improve their speaking and communication skills. I would also give them real-life tasks, such as writing emails, creating posters, recording short videos, or making simple projects in English so that they can see how useful English is in everyday life. Before giving any task, I would provide clear instructions and examples, and after the task, I would give constructive and encouraging feedback. I would try to understand each student's learning style, strengths, and weaknesses so that I can support them in the best way possible. I would also continue improving myself by learning new teaching methods, attending training, and reading books, because I believe that a good teacher must never stop learning. My biggest hope is that my students will leave my class not only with better English skills, but also with greater confidence, stronger motivation, and a positive attitude toward learning. Thank you very much to all of our speakers, Andrea Puja, Shania, Putriana, Cassia Joanna, Cora Nisa, and Fatimital, for sharing your meaningful ideas and reflections. From today's discussion, we have learned that becoming an English teacher is not only about teaching grammar and vocabulary, but also about creating a positive learning environment, motivating students, using creative teaching methods, and helping students build confidence. Each speaker has shown that an English teacher plays an important role in shaping students' future and opening their opportunities to the world. I would also like to thank our audience for listening and participating in this session. I hope that today's discussion has inspired all of us to think more deeply about the role of teachers and the importance of education in our lives. With that, we have come to the end of our discussion on the topic, what would you do if you became an English teacher? Have a nice day, everyone. Good night.
This video is dedicated to students of the English Education Department at Universitas Terbuka, Indonesia.